UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Stand by to receive our transmission.
You're listening to Star Trek Weekly News. I'm Tony Robinson. In this week's news, we reflect on the illness of Anton Yelchin. And Tarantino's Star Trek. Will it happen? All this and more coming right up. Chris Pine is reflecting on Anton Yelchin's secret illness filming Star Trek Beyond. Before J.J. Abrams helped kickstart the Star Wars franchise with The Force Awakens, he had his eye on another intergalactic property. Abrams brought the Star Trek series back to theatres with his trilogy of movies starring a talented cast and plenty of lens flares. The fate of the potential fourth movie remains unclear, although the Star Trek family suffered a loss with the death of actor Anton Yelchin. Anton Yelchin played Pavel Chekhov in all three Star Trek movies, although the threequel, Beyond, was released after his unexpected death at the age of 27. The Star Trek cast recently assembled to celebrate the first movie's 10-year anniversary, and Chris Pine spoke about working with Yelchin. It was revealed posthumously that Yelchin suffered from cystic fibrosis, and Pine remembered a scene where he's sure the young actor was silently suffering. As he put it, "While we were shooting Star Trek Beyond, especially towards the end, I think we could all tell that something wasn't right with Anton. I don't think anyone knew that he was battling the illness that he was. We had about a week of doing pretty intense stunts, like really grueling, physically demanding stunts. I haven't actually thought about it until now, but looking back on it, I remember how hard it was for him to get through it. And he never complained. He didn't use the disease to get out of his fight scene, which he could easily have done, obviously." It looks like Anton Yelchin was determined to shoot all of his scenes in Star Trek Beyond, so this included silently suffering through symptoms of cystic fibrosis while shooting a week's worth of stunt footage. It's this type of dedication that made his tenure as Pavel Chekhov such a fan-favourite aspect of the trilogy. Chris Pine's comments to The Hollywood Reporter just continued to highlight the tragedy of Anton Yelchin's unexpected death. The Russian-American actor clearly had a strong work ethic and was able to juggle his diagnosis and the long grueling hours of working on a film set. Besides not asking for assistance, Yelchin didn't even share his experience with co-stars like Pine. Anton Yelchin's life is being explored through a new documentary, Love and Tosha. The doc explores the actor's life and death, with both Chris Pine and J.J. Abrams among the cast, who speak to their experiences with Yelchin. You can check the trailer, which is now available on YouTube. It's called Love and Tosha, to see what that's all about. Anton Yelchin died on June 19th, 2016, at the age of 27. He was involved in a freak motor vehicle accident in his own driveway before Star Trek Beyond made it to the theatres. It's particularly tragic that Yelchin didn't get to see the scene that Chris Pine described above, considering the hard work involved. The fate of the Star Trek franchise is still a mystery, but if a fourth movie is finally greenlit, it would mark the first installment without Anton Yelchin's character. That story you can find on Cinema Blend, and it was written by Corey Chick-Chizola. So, having mentioned the fate of the Star Trek movies, it's nice to know that Quentin Tarantino is moving along nicely with his projected project. Quentin Tarantino has at least confirmed that his potential Star Trek movie will be rated R. Sarah L. Mahmood is reporting again for Cinema Blend on this story. Is it even a Quentin Tarantino movie without his stylized high violence and sharp language sprinkled throughout his dialogue? Each one of the auteur director's films have certainly earned R ratings, but what happens to this reputation if Tarantino ends up directing his pitched Star Trek movie? Here's what he says. "Oh yeah, it's an R-rated movie. If I do it, it'll be R-rated." If the Pulp Fiction director is involved, it's obviously going to include his famed aesthetic. This would be the first for the Star Trek franchise, which has stayed PG-13 in recent years. Previously, when William Shatner and the original series donned the big screen in the 80s, the films were actually consistently PG. Talk about boldly going where no man has gone before. Amidst some roadblocks during Paramount's development of Star Trek IV that ultimately led to it being shelved, Tarantino pitched out his own take on the property. It was reported that Revenant writer Mark L. Smith was on board to write the script. In Tarantino's recent interview with Empire magazine, he offered this update on the project. "There's a script that exists for it now. I need to weigh in on it, but I haven't been able to do that yet. Looks like Mark L. Smith has been working hard on the script for a Tarantino Star Trek movie. The director just needs to look it over. He's been busy working on his upcoming project, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but once the film is released in late July, he said he will shift his focus back over to Star Trek." As far as we know, Tarantino has not been hired by Paramount to helm the next Star Trek film, since the studio lost previous Star Trek IV director S.J. Clarkson, who left the project to work on the Game of Thrones prequel. Among other issues Paramount's faced, they may be open to ideas. What kind of script Tarantino and Smith deliver to them will determine if the project becomes greenlit and the idea of a Tarantino putting his own stamp on the franchise becomes a reality or not. It is yet to be known if this script actually includes the cast of the most recent Star Trek series of films or an entirely new set of faces. Zachary Quinto, Carl Urban and John Cho have been vocal about their interest in reprising their roles under Tarantino. However, their captain, Chris Pine, was part of the cancellation of Star Trek IV when him and Chris Hemsworth parted ways from the project due to contract disputes. Pine could potentially be swayed back into the project if he's intrigued by Tarantino's vision and the director is looking to bring his crew back. We'll likely have to wait until after Tarantino's release of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on July 26th before another update about this Star Trek project comes. Be sure and stay tuned with us here on Star Trek Weekly News. And on that note, before we leave you this evening, we have a page of script leaked to us which alleges to be from the proposed Tarantino movie. We thought we'd read you a sample. "Kirk, what's this piece of Bones? Bones. If I know, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a mother bricklayer. Kirk. Spock, you got any clues? Spock. Off. You've been listening to Star Trek Weekly News with me, Tony Robinson. Star Trek Weekly News comes to you from the offices of the United Federation of Podcasts. And all our top quality podcasts can be found on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support our network and would consider becoming a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/UFP Earth. And you know what? we'd really like to hear from you to find out what you think about our shows. And so please send us an email. You can use contact@ufp.earth, or you can send a tweet, and you can find us on Twitter @UFPEarth, and send us a top 5-star rating if you can. But either way, we'd love to hear from you and your views on the shows to date. The hard-working people behind the scenes are our executive producers, Zachary Moore, Brandon-Shea Mutala, and Ken Tripp. These guys work tirelessly and hard to bring you the shows every week. So until next time from Star Trek Weekly News, we're out every Monday. We wish you a live long and prosper.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.